There is a particular kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full, heavy, like something unspoken is pressing against the inside of a person, asking to be let out, while at the same time warning them not to open the door. You've probably felt it before. A moment when someone asks how you're doing, and the honest answer rises quickly in your chest, but you swallow it. You say, "I'm fine." Not because you are fine, but because explaining what you feel would take too much energy, or risk too much exposure, or reveal something you're not sure is safe to show. This is not the loud silence of conflict or distance. It's quieter than that. It often appears in ordinary moments, sitting next to someone you care about, sharing a meal, answering a message hours later than you meant to. Nothing dramatic happens on the surface. Yet underneath, something has closed. Not suddenly, but gently. Almost politely. As if part of you decided it would be better not to speak right now. Or maybe not to speak at all. Emotional withdrawal rarely feels like a choice in the moment. It feels like relief. A lowering of tension. A step back into a place where nothing can be asked of you, and nothing can be taken from you either. But over time, this quiet retreat begins to shape relationships, identities, and inner lives in ways that are hard to name, and even harder to undo. At some point, usually in solitude, the question forms. It doesn't arrive loudly. It comes the way difficult questions often do, slowly, reluctantly, after enough repetition to make it impossible to ignore. Why do I shut down like this? Why do I go quiet when something matters? Why do I pull away emotionally instead of saying what I feel, even with people I love? To understand emotional withdrawal, we have to stop treating it as a flaw or a failure of communication. Withdrawal is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of a very specific psychological strategy, one that formed for a reason, often long before the person who uses it knew they were learning it. Most emotional withdrawal is rooted in avoidance, but not the kind that looks careless or dismissive from the outside. It is avoidant coping, a way the nervous system learns to manage emotional threat. For some people, expressing feelings once led to rejection, dismissal, or misunderstanding. For others, it created conflict that felt overwhelming or unsafe. Over time, the mind learns an association: closeness equals risk. Expression equals exposure. And silence, however painful, equals control. So when emotion rises, anger, sadness, longing, fear, the system doesn't ask, "Is this true?" or "Is this important?" It asks something much simpler and much older. Is this safe? In everyday life, this mechanism appears quietly. A partner asks a simple question, and the answer stalls. A friend senses distance but can't name why. During an argument, instead of defending or explaining, someone goes numb. Their voice flattens. Their body withdraws. They say less and less until the conversation ends, unresolved but strangely calm. Inside, however, the emotion doesn't disappear. It compresses. What makes emotional withdrawal so difficult to recognize is that it often feels reasonable from the inside. Talking feels like it would make things worse. Explaining feels exhausting. There's a sense that whatever is felt won't be received properly anyway. And so the person chooses the path of least immediate pain: silence, distance, emotional absence. But this choice is rarely conscious. It's a learned reflex. A form of emotional self-protection that once served a purpose. Many people who withdraw emotionally grew up in environments where feelings were not welcome, not understood, or not responded to consistently. Perhaps vulnerability was met with criticism. Perhaps strong emotions overwhelmed caregivers. Perhaps love was conditional, offered only when one stayed agreeable, quiet, or self-contained. In these conditions, the child learns an unspoken rule: keep it inside. Over time, this rule becomes automatic. Emotional expression starts to feel like a risk without a reward. And so the person adapts. They become independent early, self-contained, internally rich, but externally guarded. They may even appear calm under pressure, while others unravel. What is rarely seen is the cost of that calm, the loneliness of holding everything alone. As adults, this pattern often shows up most clearly in close relationships. Intimacy activates the very fears that withdrawal was designed to manage. The closer someone gets, the more visible the old danger feels. The need to retreat intensifies not because the relationship is wrong, but because it is right, because it matters. This is why emotional withdrawal is so often misunderstood. Partners may interpret it as indifference. Friends may read it as disinterest. But internally, the withdrawing person is often deeply affected, deeply invested, and deeply afraid of what would happen if they spoke honestly. There is usually a moment, subtle, almost invisible, where the withdrawal begins. It might be a comment that lands slightly wrong, a look that feels dismissive, a silence that lasts a second too long. These moments awaken old associations. And before the person has time to reflect, the system responds. It closes. Not to punish, but to protect. The tragedy is that the protection comes at the cost of connection. Over time, emotional withdrawal creates confusion, both for the person withdrawing and for those around them. The individual may begin to blame themselves. Why can't I just say what I feel? Why do I disappear emotionally when things get real? Others may respond with pressure, frustration, or distance of their own, reinforcing the original fear that expression leads to loss. This is often the turning point, the quiet moment when the pattern becomes visible. Not in a dramatic realization, but in a tired one. The recognition that silence is no longer keeping you safe. It's just keeping you alone. The key insight here is not that emotional withdrawal is wrong. It's that it's outdated. It is a strategy formed in a different emotional environment, under different conditions, with different stakes. It made sense once. It worked once. But now, it operates automatically, without checking whether the danger is still real. When people understand this, something shifts. The withdrawal stops feeling like a personal defect and starts to feel like what it truly is, a survival strategy that stayed too long. This recognition doesn't demand immediate change. It simply creates space. Space to notice the moment when the system closes. Space to feel the impulse without judging it. Space to ask quietly what the withdrawal is trying to protect. This is where clarity begins to replace self-blame. The person starts to see that their silence has a history, that their numbness has meaning, that their distance was never about not caring. It was about caring in an environment that once made caring unsafe. In this reflective space, something subtle happens. The viewer may begin to notice patterns, not as failures, but as signals. The moments when they shut down. The relationships where this happens most often. The specific emotions that trigger retreat. This noticing is not a solution. It is an opening. And in that opening, there is a quiet relief. Because understanding brings choice. Not the pressure to speak immediately or to force vulnerability, but the option to relate to one's own inner world with a little more patience and respect. Emotional withdrawal isn't cured by pushing harder or explaining faster. It softens when safety is rebuilt, internally first. When the person begins to trust their own emotions enough to sit with them, even silently, without immediately shutting them away. The ending of this reflection is not a call to action. It is an invitation to pause, to consider what has been learned, and what has been protected, and what has been lost along the way. To recognize that silence was never emptiness, it was fullness held too tightly. Because emotional withdrawal isn't the absence of feelings. It's what happens when feelings were once unsafe to show.